In the case of nuclear or radiological fallout, people living around potential targets such as military bases and chemical plants may be advised to evacuate.
Hello, Sublation Media viewers and readers. It's I, Douglas Lane. This week, we are going to be, well, I should say I'm the author of Bash Bash Revolution and the king of all media. And I should let you introduce yourself, Ashley.
I'm Ashley Frelly. I'm a sociologist at the University of Kent. I'm the author of 2 books and lots of articles. I'm a columnist at Compact Magazine. I also write for Unheard and The New Statesman and many other different publications. And this week, we're going to take a break a little bit from politics and seriousness. And we're just going to have a little bit of fun, I suppose, in asking and discussing, what's wrong with you men? Why are you so weird?
Yeah. I want to announce before we jump into this pre-recorded interview that Ashley did with our own Susanna Kleeman, who's the author of Fatal Dating Tips, which is coming out next year, that we're going to be in Chicago on Sunday. That's when I'm arriving. And on the 19th, we're going to be at the G-Man Tavern with Benjamin Studebaker and Chris Catrone, and probably a few other panelists discussing the state of American politics, the state of the race, and the hollowing out of politics altogether in America. If you are in Chicago or want to go to Chicago or are planning on going for the DNC, please do turn up. Right now, we're still not listed on the G-Man Tavern's website, but as soon as we are, I'm going to be sending out emails and tweets and all that kind of thing to get people to purchase tickets. It's $15 to go see us there. It's worth it. We'll be autographing things and we'll be kissing babies and who knows what all will be going on to make it worthwhile to show up at the G-Man Tavern on August 19th in Chicago. So keep your eye out open for that, and thank you for supporting Sublation Media by watching. So now I'm done with my plug. So go ahead, Ashley.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this because I just found this such a fascinating phenomenon. And in the interview with Susie, I go into a little bit more detail, but there was a post that was just a question that was posted on Reddit that broke the internet over the past couple of days. And I discussed it with Susie, and I discussed it together, but of course we're 2 women discussing it. And I wanted to know kind of Doug's point of view. So what should we do, Doug? Should we play the interview and read the bit where I read the post and come back to you and tell me, before we get the woman's point of view, we need the man's point of view?
How do you? I don't know if you need my point of view on this, but yes. All right. Yes. Well, for sure. Let's do that. I'll a man's point of view. Here we go.
Sublation Magazine show. It's so great to have you on a very, very hot day. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, but let the viewers know who are you? Why are you the person we want to hear from on the internet's deepest, darkest debate?
I'm Susanna Kleeman, and I'm a Sublation author, writing my book of Fatal Dating Tips, which is coming from Sublation, I believe, on Valentine's Day 2025. And so I'm your resident in-house relationship gender wars expert. So of course you're going to call on me, right?
Great. Thank you so much. And I was so interested to hear what you had to say about this because I've become obsessed with this post. It is the new, like, what color do you see this picture, and you can only see it one way. There's no meeting in the middle, apparently. So, and oddly, it is a gender divide. So here is the offending post that broke the internet. It comes from Reddit, from True Off My Chest. I think I destroyed our relationship trying to compliment my boyfriend. My boyfriend and I are both 28 years old and together for 2.5 years. Yesterday night, we were drinking and one thing led to another, and I tried to compliment him by saying he's not someone who I would hook up or be friends with benefits with, but marry. I thought everything was fine, but he seemed extremely distraught after that. I realized how he understood it and tried to clarify it, but he is still the same this morning. He told me he needs space to think for a while and left the house. All my friends tell me I messed it up, and guys tell me it's not a compliment, and most men will understand it differently. I think I destroyed our relationship, and I'm panicking right now.
All right. So you wanted me to give my
Okay, how do you?
reaction?
So I'll give. I say what my reaction is in the interview, but I read that and I was like, yeah, okay.
Okay. So we're going to go back to what your reaction is, right? But you wanted a man's point of view on this.
Yeah.
We went into the to the conversation between you and Susanna Kleeman. Well, I'm going to give you a Gen Xer's point of view on this, and maybe not even every Gen Xer's point of view, but my feeling is that the difficulty here is this distinction or this category or the categories of the hookup and the friends with benefits.
Mhm.
And the romantic ideal is true love starts out as you get swept off your feet, driven mad by desire. You can't stop thinking about the other person. It's libidinal, it's romantic, it's sentimental, it's crazed. I think there's a word limerence that gets kicked around. You're in a state of limerence. You're high on the other person, and that translates into sexual desire and just a desire to be with the other person all the time. They become central to your life. That's the ideal. So to tell someone that you're calculating about them, you're deciding what kind of partner they are, indicates that you're not in romantic love, and it is wounding, I think. And I think it would be wounding for anyone. But the way it's being processed is, it's being framed in such a way as to add to confusion and to create I think a false dichotomy or an artificial cultural split between men and women. But I don't think that you can rephrase the question, or you can rephrase the statement from the woman and put it in a man's mouth. You'd have to recontextualize it a bit because of the different social expectations around gender. But I think you could easily find a version of this which would be offensive to a woman.
I completely disagree. Completely. And it's so interesting that you said it indicates that this wasn't romantic love. And I'm just wondering what is going on in men's heads. I had no idea. This is insane. Like, what an insight. So Susie goes on to explain by quoting Freud that what men are doing is they're projecting their own categorization onto a woman and being horrified at what it feels like coming back at them, but also because women don't tend to have a Madonna whore complex, but men do. And so they were seeing their own they were projecting their own Madonna whore complex, except that they want to be the whore, whereas a woman is usually trying to avoid getting categorized as the whore. So she says, using Freud, where men desire, they cannot love, and where they love, they cannot desire. And I kind of knew that this was a problem, but I didn't realize just how pervasive and ingrained it is when I saw this reaction and the complete inability to see how women see it. It's weird. It's so bizarre because you said this would be insulting for anyone. I read this to my husband, right? I read this post to my husband and I said, I didn't give him any background. He's very offline. I said, here, there's this post that's breaking the internet right now. How do you understand it? And he listens and he goes, oh, I see what she was trying to say, but I guess how the guy took it is like she doesn't find him physically attractive. And I was like, what? And then we go and have a conversation and we start talking about when we first met. And he says, oh, when I first saw you, I thought, wow, she's beautiful, but not like, and of course we have to cut my husband some slack because his first language is in English, but he goes on to basically describe a sexy woman. But what he was telling me was you were beautiful, not slutty. That's what he was trying to say. Right? Because, and he knows that I know men have this categorization. So this is a compliment that he is giving me. I didn't put you in the horror category. I put you in the Madonna category. Now tell me, Doug, because I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And then I went, is it? Because if men cannot desire where they love, what am I supposed to understand by that?
I don't know exactly, but I know you and Susanna work it out. But maybe when we're done, we can come back and discuss this some more. I do want to say something as a caveat.
No. Here's the thing. I've asked this question several times, and no man has answered me. No man has answered me because they know they can't admit it, that they don't desire where they love.
That's not true. That is just not true. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm just wanting to say something else. I'll answer your question, but let me say this first.
And they think that's fine, right? But they don't like it when it comes back at them.
You're not listening to me. I
want to back at them because we do love what we desire. Sorry.
Am I muted? Is this thing on? What I want to say is that whatever you might think about this post or about the battle of the sexes or how men desire and how women desire, I don't think that this is a question that socialists who are trying to organize politically need to answer before they move ahead and try to organize politically. And I want to point this out, that this is not, I don't think of this conversation as being political or vitally important for a movement for socialism. But it's fine to discuss. And I think we should be open to discussing all sorts of things and getting lots of different points of view and disagreeing, as socialists or just as people. So I just wanted to put I don't think there's a right answer for people on the left or socialists around this question.
No, this is a detour.
Yeah. So just to answer your question, I do think that it is possible for a man to desire what he loves, or
I do think it's possible. Oh my God!
You just said it was impossible, and I'm saying no, it's possible.
World
not only possible, it's
in?
likely. It's not only possible, likely, common, even maybe the norm.
Oh my God! I only desire where I love. Only.
Well, right. So now there's first of all, the distinction between being beautiful and slutty is not the same as being lovable or not. I mean, okay, you can love someone who is slutty. So there's that.
You can. Thank you for telling me that. No.
And people often do. But also, I would say that if you're looking for that distinction, then probably what you're looking for is someone who is not going to run around on you. If someone is slutty, then they're too promiscuous or sexually available to others, and you want someone who has standards so that if you've managed to get into a relationship with that person, that they've chosen you because that's what they really want, and not just because they're promiscuous and open to anybody. So that's what I'll speculate, but I'm not an expert on this. I'm not a psychologist. But that's just my common sense understanding of these things. What do you make of that, Ashley?
I just this whole thing absolutely blows my mind. So I'm reading some of the comments as well. Like Kushlik says, the person I love is the most beautiful person, but that beauty is norm breaking, shattering. That's why I would view it as spicy to be told that I was not norm breaking. Can you explain that a little bit? I'm not sure that I understand that. I'm not sure, because as I explained to Susie, we'll go to the interview in a second. I think that what this woman was doing was saying what she thought would be a compliment because that's what women get told. And it was horrifying because there's a double standard there. It's like men are, if you are like supposedly like a quality man, you are the one who's gonna be picking. You want to be the one who's picking. You're the one who's going to decide who's marriage material, right? She accidentally subverted that, and she was the one who was saying you're marriage material. He's like, no, I'm the one who says that. I'm the one who divides the Madonnas from the whores. And then he no longer sees her as a Madonna because she has now put the image in his mind of the people that came before him. And this is the thing that's very strange to me, because Now, when people are not getting married until they're in their late 20s and early 30s, what are you doing? You are dating. And with apps and all that sort of thing, what is available is often hookups. Now, in my personal opinion, I don't think, and I know this is spicy, but I don't think hookups offer much to women. Like, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been like, I'm not part of this. I haven't been single for like 20 years. So I don't know what it's like, but I do know from my friends and that sort of thing. You kind of take part in it because that's what's on offer, but it's all kind of ho hum and shit. Everything is just kind of shit. Sex is pretty available and it's all kind of shitty, but men are imagining like we're having super hot, exciting sex with all these chads. Oh, this word chad all over this. Such an incel discourse with all these chads. And then they're imagining, why would a woman give this up? Why would a woman give this up? Well, it must be because she's going to settle. No, all of that freely available crappy sex is settling. And then it's like, yay, now I have somebody. I'm no longer settling. But the man is imagining like that's his reward. All that crappy sex, that's the good thing. And marriage is the settling. And so he's projecting all of that onto her. And so I think that men just are not really necessarily realizing what it's actually like for women. Women are not out there having fantastic sex. I'm sorry to say. It's like, if you look at surveys, 65% of women orgasm during sex versus 95 to 100% of men. And it's even less outside of relationships. Like it's a terrifyingly low number. So you just like, you kind of let somebody play around with your body for a little while. Like that's pretty much the norm. And then you can have really good experiences. That happens sometimes. And then you can have really painful, dangerous experiences. That's sex for women. So don't worry, all the guys who came before you, because there are gonna be, right? You also don't want a woman who's pining after you after the first date, do you? No, you don't want that either. Because then you're like, oh, maybe she gives away her love too freely too. Right? So there are going to be casual relationships that came before you. And you know that because you had these casual relationships yourself. Okay, so you need to grow the F up and know that she's not pining for you and waiting. And then but when she finds you, it is something really special and wonderful. And she desires where she loves. That usually, I'm not saying, I can't speak for everybody, just like these men don't speak for everybody. I have also noticed that men in stable relationships tended to see it both ways as opposed to just one way. So I can't speak for all women, but I do think the norm, at least among my friends, and at least when I was younger, is that I did not desire where I did not love at all. Is awful, horrible. And I desire where I love. And as I love that person more, they become more beautiful to me. And men, I don't know. Do you understand that?
I do. Shall we jump into the Susanna Kleeman section now, or
okay? Because I wanted to say the things that I didn't get to say in the interview, so that's my spiel. That's how I wanted to explain it.
I can't help but add one other thought, which is just that I believe in serial monogamy rather than hookups. Like, I think everyone should go into these encounters, even if it's something that happens, with someone you meet up at a bar, with at least the delusion that it could lead to something more. I think it's not great to hook up with the aim of never seeing the person again, or
but here's the thing.
I think that's degrading to yourself and to the other person.
It is. And I think most women know that because they're not getting a lot out of it. But we have this culture that really pushes you to be like, oh, if you're like sexually free, that's what you should be doing. But you're not really getting anything out of it. And it takes you a little while to learn that. I think as a young woman, you are kind of pushed into that sort of thing. And then you have to realize, actually, this isn't giving me anything. However, and also what men don't understand is that when women go into hookups, it's not like they're going in like, oh, yeah, I'm here for the sexual, like to get off or whatever. Hookups can easily become this sort of thing. Like, this is the thing that Swoletariat was saying, which I appreciated. He was like, well, men don't get, but I don't know why he was saying all the men are right, because I don't get it. Because it seemed to me the men were not getting that when a woman goes into a hookup, she doesn't know what she wants. Whereas men know what they want. Right. And the problem is that hookups are ubiquitous. Like, that's pretty much what's available. And it's a tough thing for women who are dating, because men imagine that it's an equal thing. Like you're both getting something, but I think we have to be honest and say, and women have to be honest with themselves too, that you are probably not getting as much. No, you're certainly not getting as much as the man out of it. You're just not. And I know that's like, you're not supposed to say that. Oh, Ashley, you're in the 1950s. Women love sex just as much as men. Okay. Why do we refuse it so often? We just hate pleasure. We just like, I just don't want to be pleasured. No, it's like sex is sometimes very good. Like most of the time, ho-hum. A little bit worse, this man's playing with my body for a little while. And the absolute worst, painful, degrading, humiliating, dangerous. That's what it's like. So why would you put yourself through that? You have to, you are making that calculation.
I just feel like there's something really left out of this account, and then I'm gonna
like a promiscuous woman on here or something. But that's my experience.
No. If you go out on a date with someone for the first time and you end up in bed, then there ought to have been some sort of mutual seduction and excitement building up throughout the night. It should not be based on any kind of expectation from one or the other party, like, hey, I bought you dinner, stripped down. It should come about through the night.
Just gagged.
Right. So like so if it doesn't arise from some sort of mutual excitement, it shouldn't be happening. I think, and
not then it would happen a lot less.
Well, right. It should happen a lot less than on both sides, because I think men sometimes feel they have to perform, or they're supposed to want something that when they have no. I've gone on dates in the last couple of 4 years ago now, where there was an expectation for sexual activity that I didn't end up I did not pursue, because I didn't feel any real connection, and didn't think the other person felt any connection to me. But it was like at the end of the night, it was like, well, shall we go somewhere for the thing? And I was like, no. So that's happened a few times. Lots of weird things happen. What's being left out is the human relationship between people and actual connection. I think. Anyway, so let's go to Susanna Kleeman.
Let me tell you my reaction. I want to know your reaction after this. Okay, so my reaction was, yeah, cool. What? I hear this. I've heard, as a woman, I have heard this compliment a few times in my life. Susanna, how do you understand it as a woman? Because apparently we are wrong. Men's feelings are different, and feelings are facts. I've been told a few times. So go on.
There's lots of ways of looking at this. The first thing that comes to mind is this is just pure projection, basically. And as I think I was saying to you before, it reminds me very much of the Freud quote, which says that men, and here I mean people who identify as men, obviously, Ashley, that's what I mean. Men are people who can only love where they don't desire, and cannot desire where they love. We won't go into the whole Freud and what he has to say about it. It's rooted in where love comes from maternal love, and that effectively what you want is your mom, except you don't want that, because that would be all messed up to be having sex with your mom. So what you want, and your template, if you're a heterosexual man born in Western society, and this is the projection that I see coming off this post so clearly to me. What you want is things that are not desirable are lovely mothers. So that's what marriage and relationship is. But things that are desirable exist in a separate and different place. So for a woman, exactly, I felt I had exactly the same response when I first read. Yeah, great. What we're trained as women in heterosexual society is to be awarded, it's the ultimate prize. It's the PhD, isn't it? That some guy is going to want to marry you, and that would be the highest compliment. You're not just some woman I'm dating. You're not just some cheap fling. You're someone that I really see potential with. But for men, it's a totally different thing. And I have to say that for me, this has got nothing to do with innately how men are or innately how women are. It's got to do with the ancient myth of heterosexuality that we are often brought up in, schooled in, and that we believe that's got biological components and has some biological components, but is in many ways a cultural story that we have been telling ourselves. And the other big thing that came off to me from this post is that there are such depths of male insecurity that women who have bought the projection just have no idea and don't understand about. What I mean by that is, for men, the image that we as heterosexual women growing up get from heterosexual men is that they're really big, powerful, strong, and they're not creatures with insecurities. In fact, often what we're told is we're the people with the insecurities. And as we grow up, and by we, what I mean is but I am assuming that that I can reach out, even if feelings cannot be entirely provable, and say probably lots of women feel this, is a massive sudden understanding at some point of, oh my God, men are so vulnerable, but that's what they don't want us to know. And I think I've said to you before, what I think sometimes about heterosexual men is they don't want you to understand their vulnerability, but they will despise you if you do not understand their vulnerability.
Yeah, there was I've bookmarked a ton of tweets about this because there's just so much debate and it's so interesting. And that is one of the things that has really bothered some of the women, where you are supposed to understand this vulnerability, but also not. And you are supposed to be a slut, but not. And you are supposed to, it's all these horrible sort of double standards, and that's such a basic point to make, but the interesting thing is that she did not realize the double standard when she said it. So I think that she was trying to compliment him in the way that men compliment us, not realizing that there was a double standard at play, that in the man's mind she must be the virginal Madonna, and it put the notion in his mind that she was not. And he has to think in his mind she should have been pining her whole life waiting for him with no previous sexual partners.
See, I feel you're just being the tiniest bit harsh on poor men. And I think that to really understand it, we have to take an absolutely massive step back to truly understand male vulnerability and to truly understand what men have tried to do in order to overcome that. What I believe is that, sure, men and women are both sexually attracted to each other. But what I believe, again, I cannot prove this. I haven't gone around and measured all the men and women in the world. But what I believe in my heart to be true is that men have just that bit more interest in sex than most men have, that bit more interest than most women, that it's not symmetrical. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. And it's always an imprisonment to say things have to be symmetrical. You have got blue hair, I have got red hair. It's not like that. And it's much more dangerous, but perhaps a lot more real, to say your desire for my body, I'm not talking about you actually, and I'm not talking about my body in particular, but let's say a man saying to me, my desire for your body is just that bit more than your desire for my body. And then furthermore, women's bodies have other advantages, disadvantages, however you want to call it, but women's bodies can have babies, and that would allow women, in theory, to have a connected relationship that is developed over the 9 months in the womb and then can be extended, which is, of course, something available to men too, but it's not such a natural, easy given as it might be for women. And furthermore, women growing up, knowing that it is at least possible, perhaps, for their bodies to do this, just gives you a deeper and wider source of what the potential love aspects in your life might be, rather than putting it all into this one figure who is, to some degree in the heterosexual myth, an extension of your mother. And I think men are incredibly vulnerable to women. I think that the sight of naked women's bodies, the idea of a woman being like the mother, replacing, cuddling them, looking after them, is catnip to men in a profound way that women sometimes can't understand. And I would go further and I would say that in order to combat the natural disadvantage that men may feel that they have when it comes to women, men have instead used their brute force and other techniques to build entire civilizations as a sort of safe space for them, a men's club against this overwhelming power that women have over them. And so when you say it's double standards, I just feel that bit more sorry perhaps than I'm sure you feel very sorry for men too at times. And I don't only feel sorry for men, but I understand that men are physically vulnerable to women and emotionally vulnerable to women in a way that women aren't necessarily en masse to men. And furthermore, I think that women and our bodies are over glorified, but they're certainly celebrated in our society. We're beautiful creatures. We've got fabulous breasts. We've got all the stuff. We can be intelligent. We can also be admired as objects. And I think that some men sometimes have a jealousy of women being admired as objects. And I think some men sometimes would like to be objects themselves. And I think that some men sometimes, when they hear that the woman doesn't want them for their body, for the passion, for the same feeling that they might have about women, it is profoundly upsetting for them. And hoisting themselves on their own petard, having built this whole society, which is a defense against the amazing power that women have over them, and giving women within the society the price of marriage as some big reward, it's really irritating for them to feel that women can flip the script now, modern women, and say, you too, I can make those choices. I think that you're the marrying sort. No, that's not for you to decide. That's not how this is. So that's what I think.
It's amazing that the thing that I just found astounding was that they think, I mean, they must know that men and women view things a little bit differently, right? Like, why do they think women refuse sex so frequently? Just because we just hate pleasure? Like, like they must know there is some kind of imbalance there. But it was amazing to me that they imagined that we coveted men's bodies and sexual things, and then we're like, oh, not you though, but I'll marry. Like, it's just such a weird, and I was like, that must be how they see things, right? That they see a woman and think, I'd only like to have. I have literally never ever looked at a man and thought, I would solely only like to hit that. Like, literally never, not even once in my life. And in fact, a very attractive man becomes less attractive because I think this man will probably try to humiliate me. This man is not trustworthy. It's scary. A very, very like objectively good looking man. I will only personally find him attractive if I can see that he's nice, he's okay, but it doesn't seem to be a thing for them. They seem to have a few categories. I don't know.
I think that they do, and I think that's for a variety of reasons, and some of them we can't go over all of them here. But I think one thing is that men can be focused on women's bodies in a way that many women might not be, which is just to want to use it as a doll. I have to say that, and part of that is that, again, about an asymmetry. It's about, if we're talking about sex with a man who has a penis with a woman who has a vagina, different stuff is going on. We're not allowed to talk about it, but different stuff is going on. One person could be the more dominating partner in this, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's something that could be enjoyed by both parties. But I think that sometimes that sort of physical difference, listen, the pair of us are sort of like Japanese speakers talking about a language that we don't know and trying to imagine what that might be. But is it that much of a surprise to you? You're younger than me. I think I know for sure that many men just will be very happy with a body, any old body. Doesn't matter what kind of personality is attached to it. Doesn't even matter how clean it is. Just the idea of that body. It's like a drug, It's you might, you'll smoke a, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Men have a different attitude to women's bodies than women have to men. And I also think that when you see, for example, strip clubs for women or that sort of thing, it always strikes me as very fake, because it's not built around, that's not how it is for women. Yeah. I mean, is that a surprise to you that men just want bodies? Sometimes?
No, it's not at all. It's not at all. So that's the thing, is that we are so used to this that like a huge part of the dating game is trying desperately not to get put into the whore box and trying to make sure you go to the Madonna box. Like you really, and like if you like somebody,
it depends. In my book, I'm certainly talking about this. There's lots of different paths. You can go down the path of pure heterosexuality. If you want to go down the path of pure heterosexuality and just accept it, say, okay, it may be a lie, but I'm going to go for it nevertheless, then yeah, you don't want to be put into, well, it depends. You might be very highly paid whore. It might be a tremendous benefit and business sense for you to be doing that. Who can say? But I would say that, yeah, if you're going down the pure route of heterosexuality and you want to get married and that's what you want, then what you want to do is to be put into the Madonna box, because then you'll get what heterosexual society tells you is the prize, which is a marriage, which is security, which is a good place to bring up your kids. But that's a very pragmatic business idea about things. But on the other hand, you don't just have to go through standard heterosexuality. And, hate to break it to you, Ashley, I'm sure perhaps you've had intimations of this, but sometimes it can be fun to go down the whore route also. Did I just say that? Yes, I did just say that. But is that something you can have any concurrence with whatsoever?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have to like preface this with the fact that this is also for me like, what would it be like? Because I have actually not been single since I was 21, and it was for a very brief period. So I've been with my husband for 20 years. So the time that I dated was a very, very short period of time. So I don't know what it's like for people now. I'm going off my friends who are in their 30s and how I suppose it was like when I was very young. So it might be that I am going from like what an 18-year-old thought 20 years ago or something like that. So that I must preface it with that. But I think that I think that there's a lot of performance that goes into this, like, oh yeah, we can have sex like men. And I think I actually suspect that the way that what this woman said was a little bit of performance as well. That she was performing. She thought that this would be a compliment because she was like, oh, like I will be an empowered woman, and to be an empowered woman is to be like men are. I honestly think that casual hookups offer far, far less to women than they do for men. And you're encouraged to go along with it as like a empowered woman, and this is great. And also, you're not going to get married until you're in your late 20s or early 30s. So you're not always going to be, and in fact, it's stigmatized to be looking for a relationship as well. That was a problem. You had to kind of like not be looking for anything, but also not be a whore. And also, but also like you should, it's cool. That's great. Why can't we like have fun and blah, blah, blah. And like women orgasm 65% of the time, men orgasm 95 to 100% of the time. And that's like, and that's not even looking at one night stands, how frequently women orgasm. There's just very little in it. There's like, maybe like a lack of loneliness, a closeness with somebody, meeting somebody new, a certain amount of excitement, but it's not like the animalistic sexual attraction men are imagining. Like the hookups and the friends with benefits seem to me that they think this is like a prize. This is the goal for them. That's I had to sit through all the boring relationship stuff to get that. And you were just giving it away before. That's their weird, the ones who are responding to this. That's how they're seeing it. Whereas for us, that's the like boring stuff you got to get through, which is, it's not great. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know if women are out there like super enjoying one night stands. Like, I don't know any of them.
I am sure that there are some women who are out there who are enjoying one night stands, but I would agree with you, and I absolutely do.
At least it's not as enjoyable as it is for men. 100%. Definitely.
I think that's true. I think that's definitely true. I think that's definitely true because also, let's face it, what men have to do in sex is a lot easier than what women have to do. It's just an old in, out, in, out, in, out. If they do that enough, they're going to come. And it's not exactly the same for women. Women's bodies are just that bit, again, they're just that bit more, it's just a little bit different. And for me, absolutely, feminism is not about becoming a man. It's not about saying, I wish to go out and have sex with people in the same way that men go out and have sex with people. That's not what feminism is to me at all. In fact, the most basic tenet of feminism, that women are fundamentally oppressed by men, is not something I subscribe to at all. And in many ways, I fully come from the place that says women have many, many, many more advantages over men. And it may yet be that women have always controlled the world to a certain extent. And certainly the power that women have in their bodies, in their sexuality, is something that can upturn and overcome a lot of the stuff that men do in the men's club that men have built for themselves as a protection against the bodies of women. But what I would also say to you, Ashley, is, isn't this also a time of the kind of breakdown of the heterosexual myth? And the very reason that this poor woman's post, and I wonder, does that woman know that this has gone so viral? I'm sure she does. Does her boyfriend know? I'm thinking about the human actors in this, but the confusion comes from a myth. Like many other myths, like the myth of empire, a myth is the myth of heterosexuality. Yes, men are attracted to women, women are attracted to men are attracted to men are attracted to women. We're not talking about those cases, we're talking about heterosexuality. But the way it has played out, the sphere of marriage as this prize for women, all of this is not something that is inherent in my DNA. It's layers of stories, fairy tales, culture that's been put on me. But yet in the past 40 years, we could say, that myth has been severely challenged. And I think a frustration that some men feel is heterosexuality has broken down. The myth has been interrogated by women, by the feminist movement. But where does that leave us? It can't just, we built this world as a defense against the power of women. And what the hell, they're going to come in and play the rules and do this? No. So it's a crisis of heterosexuality for me, actually.
Can you say a little bit more about this crisis of heterosexuality? Like how else is it manifesting?
Well, it used to be men went out, got jobs, got the money, came home, had sex with their wife who was keeping the house and looking after the kids. And to a certain extent, that is a kind of sexy relationship. By what I mean by that is there's difference involved. There is one who goes out in the world and does things in the world and then comes back and has a separate private life. And with women emerging from the workforce after the Second World War, with feminism, with people becoming aware of, I don't want to have such an imprisoning life, I also would like to go out into the world, fair enough. But the path that's been offered to those women is, therefore you must behave like a man, therefore, you know, wear the suits, lean in, behave as a man would do in business, lose your connections and feelings to some degree that you might have had more of, not always, when you were being a mother, and furthermore, sort of dress like men to some extent, begin to look a little bit like men, make your emancipation mean becoming and looking a bit more like a man. Then it becomes a little bit more like clones. Instead of being that you're in an attractive, sexy time with somebody because they're different from you. And again, just talking about heterosexuality here, but you know, what can turn women on, what can turn men on is, oh, that person's different. They've got a different body. They've got a different outlook. They're not set in the world, stuck in this business world like I am. There is another space that I can escape to from them. But when that other space doesn't exist, when the woman appears in your workplace, looks and dresses quite a lot like you, and seems to override some of her own true feelings in order to sort of match you, because that's what society says, then are you attracted so much to those sorts of women? You know, and if women are going out making money, doing all this, where does that leave you, man, who had to build the world, who had to invent money in order to have some fucking power over these women whose very bodies and sights can make you drop everything, behave like a simp, run around and do anything? So that to me is what what I feel is there were old myths of heterosexuality. They were imprisoning to men and women. It was good and timely to challenge them and have some breath of fresh air. But the path that's gone down, which is, and therefore women should just become men, is unsexy to me. It's also untrue and is equally imprisoning, I think, and confusing. And I can understand why some men feel, you know, what do I have? She can go out and earn money. She can choose if we get married or not. She has all those things. Plus she's got tits. What have I got? You know, I understand.
Yeah, it's crazy the way that a lot of them were talking. They were talking about oh God, what was it? The dual something mating strategy, which is just strikes me as like the most awful. You know, maybe this is more well known, but it was the first time that I had seen it. It was like dual something mating strategy, where basically like men think, it seems, some men, I shouldn't say men, some men think that women will like just have lots of sex, but then they will find some cuck to raise the kids. That they honestly believe that this is what's happening. And I'm like, what world are you living in where like where you are the one who's working, taking care of all the bills, and the woman's like not working and you are the one who's taking care of things?
It's
like
pure projection.
What do you?
It's a sort of transsexuality as far as men putting themselves in the mind of women goes. All they're doing is saying, if I were a woman, if I were myself a man, but with a woman's hot body, breasts, arse, all of that, I would be out fucking lots of men, because as a man, that's what I want to do. Go out, spread my seed, have sex with lots of people. And therefore, I assume that these empowered women in the workforce are going out to do exactly that because they're just like me. You've frozen a little bit. Will you come back to me? Hope so. Or hobbies you had, or passions, or whatever. But I think the space for transcendence, the space of separating from the public world, is very limited to us these days. I think that the public world has built transcendence into it. You know, I was just thinking the other day, there used to be so much graffiti everywhere. When I went down in the tube in London, all the posters used to be defaced with graffiti. Now there's no graffiti because the posters have got self-cleaning surfaces, or they're not even print. They're often video screens. But also the other thing that the graffiti is built into the posters themselves. The posters are cheekier than we are these days. The culture has absorbed all the things that we used to like to do. when we used to want to step out from it, even to the extent of smoking a cigarette. That was a way. You're at work, you go and smoke a cigarette, you step outside, you step out, you step away from the normal place. And that is the space where things that truly matter to you occur. But now people don't smoke. Instead, they step out the whole time, but on their phones in public. And what goes on in their phones is often, before you might have a fantasy, a dream, lie in your bed for whatever reasons, fantasize about someone. Now, you don't have to do the work yourself of any form of self-transcendence. The machines can transcend for you, and now AI can do it even better, rustle up much better images than anything you could have cobbled up yourself. So the space for private life of any form, of transcendence of consensual reality, as we might call it, is very small. Therefore, all the stuff that used to be the really thrilling things about sexual relationships, which I would say probably most of the most thrilling sexual relationships possibly don't happen within the environs of marriage, but also most thrilling sexual relationships don't last for that particularly much of a long time, perhaps with the same intensity. So it's a payoff, isn't it? The payoff is intense sex versus a solid connected life with someone that you respect and get on with. But I would say the space for you to be private, even within those relationships, is much less these days, since there's such an erosion of the notion of private life in any way whatsoever. So the summary of what I'm saying is it's okay to be transactional as long as you're being honest about it, and as long as there are pockets of your life where you are non-transactional.
Yeah, I suppose what I was getting at with the transactional thing is that I was very confused as to how they were seeing it as transactional. They were like, oh, that means that she just wants him to, like, you know, wants him to use him as an ATM, or wants, like, all these horrible things that they were saying. And I was like, why? What? Why is companionship not on this list? What the hell?
Men want to be lusted over. Men want to be lusted over. They are sick.
No, I get that.
Men, what they want to, what the hot feeling they have for women. It can't be that the woman doesn't feel that. The woman has got to feel that, or else it's just a terrible imbalance. But you know, it's not they. Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before. I truly believe that it is entirely this Freud quote. They think that women think in the same way as they do and have this tremendous insecurity. And it's shocking for all concerned when a post like this comes up and just nakedly reveals to us all, oh my God, we're so incredibly very different.
Yes. And the wonderful line, just to remind people, is where they love, they do not desire. Where they desire, they cannot love. And that is so horrifying. Because that's just not, they're like, literally, as I said before, literally never once. That's just not a thing.
Women, but actually, it's worth talking about, you know, love itself. What is this love? You know, what is this? You know, if we were in the 19th century having this chat, we might be talking about religion. We might be saying, well, you know, religion gives me these wonderful feelings, and I get carried away. And when I'm in the church, and why are we? You know, we've put the cold eye on religion. Why don't we put the cold eye on love? Why are we still talking about it as even for us women? Even for us women, why are we talking about it like, oh no, I'm so pure, you know, I for me, it's all about these feelings of love. Is it really about feelings of love for other people, or is it actually about wanting our own loveliness confirmed because somebody else tells us how fantastic?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing, is that I can completely understand why men would, you know, feel this kind of void where, you know, literally, I sounds terrible. I just walk down the street and someone will proposition me for sex. Like, that happens still now. I'm almost 40. And I'm like disgusted and horrified. That's gross. Really gross.
Are you disgusted and horrified? Are you disgusted?
No. But what I like, truly, I like to know that I'm desirable. I don't want anyone to touch me, but I want to know that I'm desirable. And I think that's the thing that's horrifying for men, that it's horrifying to imagine that they see things, that women see things the way they do, but it's even more horrifying to imagine that they don't.
Yes.
They don't do things in that way.
Exactly. I would say to you, Ashley, isn't it in some ways, maybe I misspeak here, but isn't there something wonderful and fabulous to know that you are a divine goddess, and wherever you go, poor men are you know, begging to touch the hem of...
I'm just waiting for people to knock me down in the comments by saying something like that.
isn't there an absolutely wonderful feeling of knowing that you are attractive? Why should it be awful to be told and known that you are attractive? You know, why should it be so dreadful to be, you know, a sex symbol as well as a foremost intellectual? Why should that be such a terrible thing?
Because, oh, well, yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Don't get me wrong. It can be really bad, but
nobody wants to test it, and nobody would want this to be done to a young girl who doesn't have the wherewithal that Dr. Frawley has. But
no. So that's why, though, it's a compliment, because being told you're sexy is Tuesday. Being told you are marriage material is once. That's it. So, and like, I had this conversation with my husband. I read, I thought I lost you for a second. I had this conversation with my husband. So I read him the thing, the question, and he laughed and he goes, "Oh, I see what she's trying to say, but I guess he took it in this way." And I was like, I didn't even see that. That wasn't it. And then we proceeded to have a conversation about how we first met. And I was saying, like, even though he's the most attractive man I've ever seen in my entire life, I was not attracted to him because I thought that man is so conventionally attractive. He must be a jerk. He must have, you know, he can have any woman he wants. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to be any woman, whatever. Until he came up and talked to me. And even then, when he came up and talked to me, I was like, what are you doing here? So, but then he said to me, I said, "What did you think when you first saw me?" And he said, "I thought you were beautiful, but," and we have to cut him some slack because his first language is in English, but he said, "But, you know, not like those other women, you know, who are," and he started to describe sexy women, but he was trying to say, not like those slutty women. You were marriage material. You're not a hookup, you're marriage material. And for me, that was a deep compliment, because people want to hook up with me all the time. But he looked at me and he said, "I want to marry that girl." That's what he thought in his mind. And he had said it to his friend. He said, when will I ever get a girl like that? That's what he said. And so that is wonderful to me. But that is not a world that men live in. That is not a world that men live in.
It isn't. But you know, some men, perhaps wrongly, perhaps, who knows, have a feeling that women are not so into sex as them. Therefore, women would have sex with anybody. Or that women are into sex, but in a different way, which is a way where they might have sex with everybody. And although this may sound strange, you know, in the past, it's not always clear, actually, that it was men who wanted to have loads of women and women who only wanted to have one man. And because women do not expend parts of their body when they have sex, it's possible for them to have sex many, many times in a day, for example, to an extent that it's not possible for men to. I don't want to, I'm hedging a little close to dangerous territory here. But what I'm trying to say is men, I think, have an insecurity sometimes that women would just lie back and take it for anybody, because firstly, perhaps they don't enjoy it that much. Or secondly, perhaps their bodies are able to do that role much more than men do. Therefore, how does the man know that he's special? What makes the man special? And that might tap into a lot of insecurities that the man has, got nothing to do with women, about not feeling special. Because again, to go back to it, I may have nothing, but I'm lucky enough to have 2 kids, and I'm lucky enough to have done a lot of mothering of them. And therefore, even if I don't have such a good time going with men, say, I do have other sources of support, love, connection in my life. And not all men are lucky enough to have those sorts of connections and feelings. Not all men have grown up enough to be able to give love that is non-sexual love to other people who need them. Lots of women are forced to do that because they have kids and they have to step out from beyond themselves. So what I'm saying is that women possibly have many sources of love, affection, the feeling of being attractive, and men possibly have much fewer. And with women, you can see, if a man is attracted to me and I'm standing close enough to him, I can tell physically that man is attracted to me. He is vulnerable to me in so many ways. I can stand there impassive, very attracted to a man, and he will never know that I'm attracted to him. So again, our bodies give us, again, an advantage. I really do think women have tremendous advantage. And in thinking these things through, it gives me ever more compassion for men, because what we have natively, the ability to be intelligent and have these conversations, as well as looking absolutely gorgeous, as we both do. You're looking a little bit more gorgeous than me, looking a little bit red and sweaty here in London. These are tremendous advantages, you know. These are tremendous advantages. That's what I think.
Yeah, but I have all my experiences when I was younger were all pretty horrible and manipulative, like really manipulative. And I
Because you
feel
were
like that power.
because you were inside the myth of heterosexuality, right? Because you were inside the myth, the dwindling, dying myth of Western heterosexuality. But say you had been born into, you know, I don't know, I'm going to say something ridiculous now, the prostitute temple schools of Babylon, you know, where women had awesome power, were in the temples having sex with people, as in the ancient myth Gilgamesh. You know, you might have a very different idea about it. And if you were brought up in those conditions and circumstances, perhaps what you would, you wouldn't have had so much exploitation, because there wouldn't have been such a gap between your agency and the actual reality of what the society said. You would have been brought up to know your immense sexual power as well as your intellectual power. And if some man had come and been, you know, saucy to you, you would have batted him away instantly and understood what the terrain is. Whereas if what you're born into, which is the same world that possibly I was born into, which is like, oh, in the past there used to be sexism. Now there's no sexism. Now men and women are equal. Oh, why is this weird, leery old man coming on and saying these things to me? Oh, why is this person doing this? Why is that person doing that? We're just unschooled, I do feel. And that's one reason that I'm writing my book, because I just feel like these are very obvious things that should be said to men, to women, that women should know about their power and should be able to therefore deal with, and only not expect men to behave differently, better, whatever. Understand that the overwhelming visual lure that women and their beautiful faces and bodies have to men is going to result in men behaving in this way to you, whether men like it or not. And it's not something that we're going to be so easily schooling them out of. And instead of trying to sort of say, no, and you mustn't do that, instead, it would be better to teach women, to teach younger women, perhaps, yes, you are gorgeous and wonderful. This is what's going to happen to you. These are the techniques for dealing with it, instead of pretending that it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to know what these techniques for dealing with it are, because and that's why I'm really looking forward to your book, and it's coming out in February. But I've got 2 daughters, and I'd love to save them from I gotta tell you, I didn't feel too powerful when I was younger. I definitely didn't feel too powerful. And because like they had something I wanted, and it was like, I wanted like closeness, companionship, that sort of thing. And they didn't never seem to want that. And they were always trying to manipulate you. And that's just horrible. It's just absolutely awful.
Yes.
And I feel like men want to be that, you know, whereas this is just a terrible situation, but that's the situation men want to be in. They want women all over them. Manipulate me, baby.
Manipulate
I think that's
me.
like the core of our misunderstanding.
Well, what it is I will become incredibly vulnerable to you in this one moment, which also, let's also say, at the core of that one moment, sometimes for some men, is a kind of 10-second window where they are all powerful, if you know what I mean. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Ashley. So the core of heterosexuality is this intense 10 seconds where you're utterly dominant, right? And you're also utterly vulnerable. And then after that, so manipulate me until I become all powerful, and then go away because it's too confusing and upsetting for me and I'm too vulnerable. But all this stuff about young girls wanting men to understand you, to be your friend, to develop you, to become one. So that this is the core of the myth. You know, why would it be a man who can do those things for you? Why would it be a 15-year-old boy when you're 14 who would be able to do those things for you? That's the nuts and bolts of the lie of heterosexuality, as far as I'm concerned. That's the wrong story that is sold to women. So to me, the problem is the wrong story that's sold to women about heterosexuality, rather than the innate power of women themselves. But then I also don't think that the dismantling of that myth, so that there are no differences between men and women in theory, where we're just clones, bods, in and out, I also don't think that that's the right answer. I just think more honesty about our asymmetrical issues is what is required. I've told you this before. You know, men can build the world. They can do this. They can do that, and it can all be destroyed in 1 second by one hand gesture from a woman, which is this hand gesture, which is just, you know, as soon as a woman does that, everything is destroyed. If a man does that to a woman, well, you know, what do you care? Well, no, obviously I don't really mean that. Obviously you care a lot, but it carries less weight. It's paper thin what men are. Their egos are paper thin. Their vulnerabilities as shown in this post, are all on display. One should feel tremendous compassion for them and understanding of where they come from. At least in the olden days, when the little lady was at home, they had the power of money, they had the power of being the provider, so the woman had to sort of sit there and do what's told. And if that is taken away and the woman has equal powers, it's a frightening, terrible situation. You know, where do you get your anger? Where do you get your power? Where you know, the amazing thing is to see that people can't see you get it from being a good, genuine
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. So maybe to kind of round this out, then I wonder if the message that you want to give is like, men and women are different, and that's okay. But we seem to be in a cultural moment where it's like, this group and this group are different, and this group's understanding is better and is just correct, you know? So one of the things that I noticed is the way that men were saying, like, well, this is just the way that men feel about it, and that's just it. And what women are not getting is that this is the way that they're always asking us to care about their feelings, but and it reminded me of like, white people need to listen. That's what it reminded me of. You know, white people, black people are saying.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And I've been very kind to heterosexual men, I feel, mostly in this conversation. But a part of the story is also about the claiming of victimhood for heterosexual men, because victimhood is gold, because you can make professions, careers, names. You know, you being a victim is where it's at. It's an endless gold mine if you use it in a certain way. And these poor men, another terrible thing for men is they haven't been able to jump on the victim bandwagon. And this, they're talking about
but
their
they're
vulnerability.
trying. Sorry.
But they're trying, but good luck to them. Good luck to them, Ashley. You know, good luck to them. That's you know, we will make space for men also to be victims in our world of victimhood, or else we would be discriminatory, and we don't want to be doing that, do we?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to get into a situation where you just like deny all male pain or anything like that. But and I also want to get to a situation where like we understand a form of universalism that recognizes that people are different. Groups of people are different, have different outlooks. Some things are incommensurable, and some things are not, and that we can come to an agreement on. And that's the essence of universalism, I think. Anyways, it's the contradictions of universalism.
But the only way to do that is by being honest and you know, because you think that you are unable to desire somebody that you love, we'll use the term love for the sake of convenience, you must be able to understand that other people, other sexes may feel entirely different to you. And I completely agree with you. Universalism is what you want, but it won't be done by lying about it, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. I desire who I love. That's the major difference. Like, you know, a guy's got to be cute. You know, he's got to clean up, you know, be clean and all that sort of thing. But the more that he is kind, the better that he is, the more attractive he becomes. So, as like I said, my husband's the most attractive man I've ever seen to this day, because he is kind, and he becomes more and more attractive and more desirable because he's a genuinely nice person. So that, and I feel like, is that not a universal? Apparently, I'm learning.
I think yes, I think that it is. I think sometimes the problem comes from using the word love, because it sounds a bit like fairy dust. And you know,
I love me some fairy dust.
Yes, but if you say if I say, I'm going to quote some Baudrillard here, if I say I love you, it shows that I have fallen in love with language, which is in itself a form of betrayal. So what that means is, as soon as you start banding around the words like I love you, what you're doing is clinging onto a societal norm. You're saying this thing has happened for me. You know, it's like saying I've seen Jesus or something like that. You know, I have a new level unlocked. And I think as soon as you say I love you, you can be able to say, well, you can start to demand things of people. Well, I love you. You should love me. Do you love me? And it actually, although we think that it's this deep emotional spiritual thing, it becomes something that's a lot more like shopping. I demand that you love me. You know, another quote from Baudrillard, he says, when you say I love you, it means I demand you love, that you should love me. I demand to love you. That those are, it becomes, well, I've got this thing, I love you. What am I going to do about it? Whereas I think the actual reality is, it would be more helpful to think not of love, but in terms of moments of joy that you have with somebody, moments of connection, moments of fun, moments where you feel bonded with people, plus an acceptance that sometimes those moments don't exist. And you're not going to have those feelings about somebody all the time, that there are beautiful moments, but, you know, as a whole, it may not all look so pretty. And I think when you say things like, but I love you, or I'm in love, what you're trying to say is there is a spell that should be always like that. You should always behave in this way to me. And I think that goes contrary to what human nature is, and it can build lies into relationships. So for me, I'm more comfortable with saying moments between people, affinity with somebody, shared values, a bond, a debt, you know, liking hanging out with somebody. It seems much safer to me to talk in those terms than to say, I love him, he loves me, because that's a simulation.
Yeah, I was just sort of trying to give the dichotomy of like, I cannot desire who I love. It's how odd that sounds to me, because it's the opposite. So I think it's just trying to understand like how different the perceptions can be.
You know, I think it is. I think it's possible for women to have sex with men that they hate, but I think it is probably, again, not something we can measure, but I think probably within the you know, the sex that's gone down in human history, more sex has been had by men who hate the woman that they're having sex with than the other way around. That is it can be exciting and interesting for men. That also, and these are taboo topics that it's difficult to talk about, and so maybe I'm not going to talk about it too much here. But I think that is something that's hard for people to understand.
Visually saw a can of worms being opened.
You know, desire is not polite and pretty. Again, to go back to what the post was saying, desire is not always polite and pretty. And that's what makes it sexy sometimes. Oh, did I say that? Yes, I did say that. What was the Esther Perel book, Mating in Captivity? You know, the psychotherapist Esther Perel, who wrote a book called Mating in Captivity, which is her words for the definition of sex in marriage. And what she says is it's not innate to humans to be in what she calls captive relationships, which we might call marriage. And her practice as a marriage guidance counselor is to help people through how to maintain desire within you know, a long established marriage. But you know something, maybe it's not possible to do that. Maybe it just isn't. Maybe there is something, a dichotomy between feeling overarching desire to rip someone's clothes off and you know, the satisfactions of a long-term relationship. But I would also bet that the most serious commentators against this post are younger men. They're not people who've been in long-established marriages. I think people who had been in long-established marriages would understand the compromises that those things entail, would have less premium on wanting to feel like a desired sex object every bit as much as a woman would have settled down to understand what perhaps you in your long relationship and marriage and you know, the rest of us who are older can understand better, which is that's not what it's about in the end. That's what it's about at the beginning, but that's not what it's about in the end for men or women.
Well, thank you so much, Susanna, for joining me. I know I kept you much longer than I said I would, but it was just so interesting, and I wanted more. So thank you so much. I hope I haven't put you out, and we'll definitely have you back on.
It was very fun to talk to you.
Okay. Well, that was a very interesting conversation. Lots of comments. I want to read a quote from a sex expert, a man named Steve Martin, here at the end. He says, many people come to me and they say, hey, how can you be such a swinging sex god? Well, I tell you, it's not because I can make love up to one time a night. It's not because I say the things a woman wants to hear, like, are you through yet? It's because I know how to read a woman. If she's like a cat, I bring kitty litter. If she's like a dog, we do it on the paper. But I'm also a unique guy too. The kind of guy who likes to have his own special scent, not to smell like every other guy. I like to have my own individual odor. That's why I wear tuna fish sandwich. I put a tuna fish sandwich under each arm, maybe one or two behind the ears. I don't smell like any other guy. And it's economical too, because the smell lasts 4 or 5 days. All right. So that's how I wanted to end.
That is such a Doug thing to do. All right. Thank you, everyone. We are actually going to get a little bit more serious in the Patreon section. In the Patreon section, we will go back to the serious things, which is
Yeah.
Studebaker.
We're going to be talking about Benjamin Studebaker's essay on the administrative state. People are welcome to join. We're actually going to be talking about socialism there. But if you wanted to talk about tuna fish sandwiches or love and sex or whatever else you want to bring up, feel free to bring those things to the conversation too. If you go to Patreon, you'll find a link to the StreamYard. I hope it's the right one. I think it is. And yeah, we'll see you there. So I'll run the outro, which is the same as the intro now.
In the case of nuclear or radiological fallout, people living